the tough guy act in these Senate hearings. You know where to find me. Any place, anytime, cowboy. Sir, this is a time, this is a place. If you want to run your mouth, we can be two consenting adults. We can finish it here.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect.
You want to do it now?
I'd love to do it right now.
Well, stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on.
Big guy.
Oh, stop it.
Is that your
All right.
solution every
Hold it. No, sit down. Sit down.
Okay.
You know, you're a United States Senator. Sit down.
Active.
Oh, okay.
Sit down, please.
All right.
Can I respond, Mr.
Hold
Chairman?
it. Hold it. If we can't, no,
This is
I have
what
the
he
mic.
The 2024 Republican presidential primary field is taking shape.
The battle lines are becoming clearer, and so is the field of candidates.
Is the odds-on favorites, if you look at the polling, still Trump versus Biden?
That seems to be it, but it's just way too early to tell.
I'm more angry now and I'm more committed now than I ever was.
Big challenge for these candidates is going to be how do they navigate Donald Trump and how do they navigate Ron DeSantis?
You and I have a rendezvous with destiny.
Welcome back to the Ruthless Variety Program. That was Senator Mark Wayne Mullin laying it down to the Teamsters in a Senate hearing this week. I'm sure you've seen the clip before, but what you don't know is here on the Ruthless Variety Program, we have Mark Wayne himself today.
I mean, that clip was awesome. I mean, that was so terrific. I mean, I always like it when your priors are confirmed, right? And like the head of the Teamsters is just like some Italian guy. It's like, it's like, oh, why you want to run your mouth? You know? like this guy's just a humble waste management official from New Jersey, right? Out there zapping rats.
Zapping rats and shit. Oh my God.
I don't think he's Italian. He got called for a
Blast comes out of nowhere.
The guy is probably most definitely not Italian. So it's just incredible.
So you got an Italian Teamster guy, right?
I love that we started this hot. It's been a hell of a week in Washington, D.C., your nation's capital, and around not only this country, but around the world in terms of politics. We're going to have a little bit of fun. That was not the only incident that happened on Capitol Hill. We're going to cover it all here, along with your 5 stars, your horse race update, and who won the week. We're going to take you out to San Francisco and do a little discussion about what's important to world leaders out in a completely made-up town that they just sort of like somehow dusted up, and see what everybody has to say there. We're going to talk, we got a little snakes. We're going to talk about some snakes.
We have snakes.
Which is, you know, I mean, I think it maybe in terms of decorum, maybe a half step up from the chicken talk that we had on Tuesday.
Well, until you showed me the video, I didn't know what was going on, and it's terrifying.
It's
like
terrible.
Everyone, you're in for a hell of a show.
You're in for a hell of a show on that. And then we are going to do King of the Hill. We're going to play a game here.
That's
today,
right.
because that's important to us, and we know it's important to you.
Millions of Americans earn and use credit card rewards. A few big box retailers want to take those rewards away, rewards we use on groceries and school supplies. The cash back to save on gas and grow our small businesses. And travel miles we use to make memories. The so-called Credit Card Competition Act would eliminate credit card rewards. No more travel miles, no more cash back. When lawmakers help mega retailers line their pockets, we pay for it. Tell your lawmaker to vote no on the big box bill. Visit handsoffmyrewards.com to take action today.
Fellas, I'd be remiss if I didn't notice a little bit of tension on Capitol Hill this week.
Yeah. I mean, it was like Fight Club.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you've always rooted for this, Smug.
Yeah. I mean, I always enjoy the chaos.
Yeah.
But usually it's like, oh, here we go again. They're just going to, talk is cheap. No one's actually going to do anything. I mean, for the folks on YouTube, you saw that video clip. The best is he took his wedding ring off.
Mm-hmm.
He was
yeah.
I mean, he was going to go in with it.
He's like ready for it.
He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the Teamsters guy actually, he talked a big game, but that would have ended very badly.
Yeah, he has someone else push the button, you know, when he says the word. He doesn't do it himself.
For those of you who don't know, Mark Wayne Mullin was a professional fighter.
Yeah, like literally an MMA fighter.
He did it for a living.
So when he was like, "Are you ready to go?" Because I'm ready to go. He meant it.
He's also just a hell of a guy, and we've got him on today, so I'm very excited about that. Listen, I feel very good about where we're at in terms of like the amount of news that we're creating here on the this little program that could.
Yeah.
We had Nikki Haley on Tuesday. Turns out the internet had some thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, so we essentially, she came on the show and she mentioned that social media can have a negative effect, whether it's in the conversation or as a tool of propaganda. Like, I completely agree in terms of TikTok being managed by the Chinese. Their algorithm is essentially designed to destroy America from within.
Which is kind of what we were trying to get at.
But she says her position became, and I think she articulated it perfectly clearly, that anyone who has an anonymous account must have that account tied to like their real ID. Like when you press her, like even smug, and she was like, "Yep, as long as he's got a driver's license to it." So I was like, I don't support that.
Right.
But that's her position.
And for those of you clowns who are out there who are like, God, what are you guys doing? Not like tackling her out of her chair when she says that.
Yeah.
Our goal here on the Variety Program is to get answers like the one you just obtained. So if that makes a difference for you in your voting, how about a thank you? How about, hey, thanks, guys. You asked a relevant question that actually I give a shit about.
No.
You fucks. I mean, like, literally, I could not believe. And the funny thing is, she said the same thing, 12 hours later on Fox. And they're like, oh, here's another one. It's on Fox. And they weren't being like, oh, what a bunch of assholes on Fox News.
Well, so I think the wonderful thing about the Variety Program, and we've made this incredibly clear, is we exist as a platform for all conservatives who are either running for office or in office, and it's a place for them to speak their mind. And as opposed to, if you're in Congress as a Republican, you just have like Manu from CNN waiting to ambush you with a gotcha.
Yeah.
Here, you've got a platform, and all candidates get a platform. So I'm incredibly proud of that fact. And what happens is you actually get to know the candidate.
You actually get answers.
And to some of the people online, and I'm thinking mostly of like the DeSantis camp.
You always attack the DeSantis people, which is why.
Online. Well, they attack me, and I don't go quietly.
Well, I think for good reason.
He doesn't.
But there's just a lot of people who I think are sort of misinformed, and they're like, when we're praising the tactics of a candidate, it's not because we're endorsing that candidate. we are observing what is happening in the campaign, and we are saying people are doing good things.
Does anybody think that they would allow us to do pregame shows at debates if we were in one candidate camp or another? Like, of course not.
Well, I mean, that's sort of beside the point. But, I mean, the real point is, like, the idea that we haven't done enough to promote the work of Ron DeSantis. Folks, we all flew on an airplane to St. Pete to do the launch of his gubernatorial campaign.
Yeah.
And,
you know what I mean?
And when we did Iowa, we had him on stage, and he did terrific.
He did.
It was basically the Ronnie D show in Iowa.
All of us said that was his best showing.
If you haven't seen that, by the way, go to our YouTube page, go back and look at that. First of all, the visuals of that bar were just fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Great play.
Terrific time. He did a great job. If you want to see how we all interact, it's a pretty good indication of where we're at with things. Like, we ask questions. We like to get... I know that you guys all feel like this, but I feel like the need to explain to our audience, we like almost everybody that comes on the show. We think everybody has a voice and a important piece to play in this party, or they wouldn't be on here. Like occasionally we'll do something completely ridiculous, like invite Caitlyn Jenner, immediately regretted it. And she canceled anyway. And so we ripped her upside down and down the other. But like, for the most part, when we're doing interviews, it's because somebody is playing a very big role in the state of the Republican Party. And you ought to hear about it. You may hate them. You may love them. But we're going to get them to talk in a long form way about their views. And in that process, believe it or not, you actually learn a fuckload more than you do if we're sitting here being like, here's your oppo sheet, let me just press you on every single one of these things, which is what you get on cable television.
Yep. And also, like, what I love, like I was saying about us being the unbiased platform that lets all conservatives speak, is then somehow you get the perception online, and I think Duncan gets this the worst, of like, they favor one candidate over another. Like, the DeSantis people are convinced that Duncan's in the tank for, I think, Trump. I think they're saying he's for Trump.
I know, Trump or Nikki, depends on the day.
So, so it to me, it brings a lot of joy. I'd say continue attacking Duncan in that fashion.
Yeah.
Because that is actually really
And the guy who's breathing the easiest is Ashbrook down in the end, because for weeks it was him that was getting the brunt of the action. And then now it's moved on over to Duncan.
I like the spotlight.
So I would continue attacking Duncan.
He loves it.
That's my advice.
Yes.
He loves it. He's just by the end of this primary, he's going to show up in a singlet.
Yeah.
Oh, we just love every minute of it. So, listen, you can go to our YouTube page at youtube.com/Ruthless Podcast. You can see all the things that we're talking about. If that's not for you, that's fine. We also know it's the Christmas season. You might be interested in some gifts.
That's right.
Michael has taken it upon himself to provide you with many opportunities to invest in the Ruthless Podcast for friends
Yeah.
or enemies.
Yeah.
You can send him whatever you want, and that's at store.ruthlesspodcast.com.
Yeah. I mean, if you're hosting Christmas and you're going to have like your liberal aunt over or something,
Oh,
Yeah.
man. Yeah.
get him some Ruthless gear.
Just that would be like a nice little present, and especially if you do like elephant gifts or something like white elephant
White
gifts,
elephant. Yeah.
where like that is the thing. You're going to see that thing passed around quite.
Oh,
a bit,
yeah.
especially with lib stuff. I
And
mean,
send us photos and we'll retweet that.
yeah, we'll get that out there.
And also, I've gotten really good replies of folks who, I guess you got the baby gear
Yeah.
up there. Folks love it. So
Yeah, no, it's great stuff. It's great stuff. All right, so speaking of the confrontation, the first thing that came to a lot of people's mind this week was the allegations that were made by Congressman Tim Burchett. And he's a Tennessee congressman who accused Kevin McCarthy, the former speaker, of elbowing him in the kidneys.
yeah, kidney elbow.
The ex-speaker denies it. Not surprisingly, CNN was all over this. Our boy Manu was just like I mean, listen, if there's dirt to be dug, that guy is right in your face. And he was just like immediately getting the responses of this. And so according to CNN, Tim Burchett of Tennessee accused former Speaker Kevin McCarthy of elbowing him in the kidneys Tuesday morning while Burchett was talking to a reporter, the latest sign of how tense the dynamics are in the House GOP conference. Now, for those of you who are wondering like why the significance of all of this is Burchett was one of the 8 that deposed Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House. And they were thought to be friends coming into this. And to the surprise of Kevin McCarthy and many, he decided that he was going to team up with 7 others to oust him from the speakership. Now, clearly, there's bad blood there. Question at hand is whether or not physical violence was intended or not.
Well, Burchett was conducting an interview with NPR, National Public Radio, and Kevin McCarthy was walking by, and what Burchett says was a very tight hallway. What Kevin McCarthy says was a very tight hallway. McCarthy said he didn't intend to bump into him, and if he did, it was a mistake. So Kevin McCarthy denies bumping into Tim Burchett. What Tim Burchett has yet to do is deny giving an interview to National Public Radio. We all know. We all know is a communist outlet funded by taxpayers.
You got a lot of journal buddies in NPR, right? They're going to be upset with you now on that.
So here's the quote from Burchett. I got elbowed in the back and kind of caught me off guard because it was a clean shot to the kidneys.
He's acting like he got fucking sucker punched by Mike Tyson.
Yeah, right.
Or
so,
like that
and I
Seinfeld
turned
episode
back.
with like someone spitting on someone. From the grassy knoll, the elbow arrived.
A grassy knoll. And there was Kevin. For a minute, I was kind of, what the heck just happened? And then I chased after him, of course. Burchett
awesome.
told CNN. Now that he's the type of guy that when you're a kid, you would throw a rock over the fence and run home and hide behind mama's skirt, Burchett said. Burchett said that he went over to the former speaker to confront him about the altercation, but McCarthy brushed him off. He added that he raised his voice and that McCarthy responded to him with that, quote, high-pitched kind of thing.
I mean, what a shot.
So the document didn't have
What a shot.
the best line because he said the meanest shit ever. Where like during the interview that they were asking him like, okay, so what's going on afterwards? And he was like, well, I would go and try to talk to him in his office, but I don't even know where his office is anymore.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
That was
like
brutal.
that is a hit. Like
that was
bro.
brutal. But all right, let's break this down. First of all, I don't know. I mean, did he intend to bump into him? Maybe. Do I believe it was a clean shot to the kidney? Like, no. I mean, Kevin McCarthy, my favorite part about this is like the image of Kevin McCarthy. And then there was another member that came out. I think it was a former member. What was his name? That garbage congressman who was a part of the...
There's so many to choose from.
Part of the Jan 6 commission. Yeah, his name's escaping me. But you'd know him if you saw him. Anyway, that guy said, yeah, he shoved me once too. Like, so he like validated.
Like a Democrat?
No,
the Republican one. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. He's like, yeah, he shoved me once too.
That guy.
So like the image of McCarthy is like a mob boss where he's out there just fucking whacking shit. And like he's like dropping elbows on people and pushing people around. Let me just assure you, he would still be speaker if that were the case. Don't you think? I mean, if he was that badass.
So I mean, I believe Burchett because he said that he ran after K-Mac, and it's like there's no reason to run after like and create a story out of nowhere. You know?
Oh, I'm sure he hit him.
Yeah.
I'm not questioning that.
Wait. You don't think that Tim Burchett would create something out of nothing? We just deposed a speaker for no fucking reason. And now we are a month later with a CR.
No, it's the same. So
you know what I mean?
All right. So the backstory for those of you who aren't following the ins and outs of politics, and I don't blame you because this is boring as shit. But the mainstream media likes to make a big deal out of government shutdown. And it turns out there was a CR that was in, which is basically the continuing funding of the government that was at issue at the end of the McCarthy tenure because he passed basically the continued funding that had been allocated the year before for another month to give them time to begin processing other appropriations bills to change priorities or whatnot. Republicans were so incensed, at least 8 of them were, that they threw him out of office. So what happened this week when the next thing came up? They did the exact same thing. Like literally to the letter, the same thing. And you got some consternation from Republicans. They required Democrats to pass it. Anyway, it passed. And so here we are, to your point, the exact same set of circumstances that beset the Congress before, although now we have a speaker who has a little bit more cachet with the right because he is the one that they elevated instead of Kevin McCarthy. And they think it's not a problem of his own making. They think that like he's going to reset the dial and allow Republicans to do. That all remains to be seen. All of that being said, we're now in a situation where there's physical violence going on. And what Burchett is claiming is that the retribution comes in kidney punches.
Which is, I hope it's true. I hope Congress is like that. Because then I would start respecting Congress. If it was the kind of place where people start hitting each other, I'd support that. How, like, at least he fights. You know what I mean? Like at least he fights.
I do kind of like, when you're elevated to a leadership position, and this is very inside baseball, but you all ought to know this. When someone's elevated to a leadership position in Congress, they're a badass to begin with. Like they know the ins and outs, they figured it out. Like they have no leverage. These are strong people for a variety of reasons. When they are relieved of their duties in one form or another, the stories they tell, I mean, these people are like uninhibited. And I feel like we've got that with K-Mac right now. I feel like he's still a member of Congress, but he's like, oh, I'm going to wish you did not do that. I'm going to make you wish you didn't do that. And maybe the kidney punch happened. Maybe it didn't. I'm assured that he let him know where they were, though. Don't you think? He was like,
They really should. So I don't think this approach by Burchett to talk to CNN about it was the way to do it.
How about NPR? Do you think that was the right move?
Sure. I mean, Ashbrook's journal buddies, help keep him, working. But he should have emailed him, called him somehow, and been like, "Listen, bro, behind the Capitol, 5:00."
Email filled out
what's going down.
It leads to our next story because what you suggested was exactly what Senator Mark Wayne Mullin did in the United States Senate.
This is the guy
within
who knows.
hours of this exact.
Yeah. I'm telling you, it was like Fight Club Day on Congress.
So this Teamster guy had been baiting him for months, saying he would fight him.
Yeah.
That he would fight him, and you'll hear this in the interview. And he showed up at a hearing because Bernie Sanders brings in all these union dudes to like talk about how great unions are, and so Mark Wayne Mullin availed himself of the opportunity of rereading the comments that you heard at the top of the show of what the man said to him, and asked him if he wanted to run his mouth or if he wanted to settle it right here. And the gentleman decided the right response was to try to take him up on the offer.
Yeah. It's not a good idea.
Well, you know, the thing is that the guy actually knew his background, which is hilarious.
Wait, the Teamster dude knew that he was an MMA?
Yeah, you'll hear in the interview. Like he knows who he is. So it's all talk, right? I mean, because he literally would have made him hamburger within like 7 minutes.
Yeah.
And this guy's like, why don't you stand your butt up? And so Mark Wayne did. And then we talk about this too in the interview. You guys will hear this. The thing that was the key to those of us who've been in similar situations is the man stood up and adjusted his ring.
Yeah, it was so serious. That is such a serious move.
When you're doing that, you know that a man has spent some time with his hands.
Yeah. It's like someone's going to get busy.
Somebody understands what a ring position does on a face.
Yeah.
And if I were that Teamster,
you don't want take like this is a professional. Clearly.
I would have stopped talking immediately.
Yeah, totally.
This guy didn't, and he was like, "Can I respond?" And Bernie Sanders, which is like one of my favorite parts of that clip, was like, "No, you may not. No, you may not."
I mean, he's old enough to remember what Pinkertons did, right? So he was like, "I've seen enough Union thugs catch a beat down." Not on my watch today.
I mean, that guy was going to end up in the Meadowlands. No question about it. But anyway, all this stuff is happening. And by the way, a lot of things that didn't make the news, like super contentious screaming matches and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And you hear us talk sometimes, you know, you get like the Laura Ingrams of the world who are like, why don't they stay in session all the time and do the work of the American people?
Well,
this is
that.
why you don't.
No, I support that. Keep them working. Keep them working. There should not be a day off. They should work Saturdays and Sundays.
You want them to fight.
Yes.
Physically.
The thing is that they have been selected as leaders, right, by voters. That means that they ran on the promise that I will represent you and do what needs to be done to improve the lives of Americans. And that doesn't mean like, okay, bro, we've had 2 days of work. It's time to go on recess. I don't take a day off fighting for the conservative movement. Why should they?
Oh, my God. That's a ballsy statement.
I would remind our listeners, and I know this is sort of like a cheap thing that people say. It's like rhetoric about, you know, they only work so many days out of the year. And it's like, well, number one, they're going to do horrible shit to you and your family if they are here every single day.
If you have, and I don't care what party's in charge. I honestly don't. If you have a Congress in session charged with passing a bill a week, we're talking about the worst fucking republic you've ever seen in your life.
And
like nobody should pass that many laws. We don't need more laws.
Right. And like recess doesn't mean vacation. It means they're back in the district or the state that elected them having to talk to you, which is like, that is what representative democracy looks like. Like you actually want that too. Because you get some FaceTime with your senator or your congressman.
Yeah.
So like, we want that.
No, they should work all day, catch the Southwest.
They should never be here. They should just...
Southwest, back to the district, talk to people. By the morning, you get back to work.
You want them on Southwest.
They have to.
That's nice.
That's where you put the animals. You know, you got to live among them.
But so we're going to reorder things a little bit because I think we need to hear this.
Yes.
Let's go to the Mark Wayne Mullin interview to get his side of the story on all of this. And by the way, you're going to fall in love with this guy in the process because, I mean, like, what a great dude.
Yeah.
So typically we kind of have a staid introduction to distinguished guests, particularly one of this level of distinguished.
Level, that's funny.
This level.
My kids are laughing right now.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a serious person here. He's a United States Senator, for crying out loud. But for this particular introduction, given recent events, we felt like we should go ringside.
Ladies
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. It's time for our main event. In the red corner from the Sooner State, the Teamster Terror of Tulsa, 3-name Markwayne Mullin.
That's dang good. I'm telling you, if this fight actually happens, you're announcing it.
It's like a blend of Buffer and Jimmy
I
Lennon
was going to
Jr.
say, Buffer's nervous right now. He is aging. I mean, he's a great guy, but I mean, you're coming up. You bring some youngness to it.
Senator
You need to put
Mullin.
the hands into it, and I get in my face. When you're
We just want to. I think we're going to get to a point where we're just going to drop the
Drop the mic.
microphone from the top and have him just sort of like do the walk around.
But as I'm talking, you need to wrap your arms around me and put the mic to my face. You ever seen him do that? I want a hug. That's what you got to do next time.
Listen, I don't think anyone's getting in your face.
Well, I don't know. Talk to my wife. She may say something different.
Well, as you said, with 6 kids, you might be right about that.
Yeah.
Listen, clearly you've made some news.
Yeah, a little bit.
You've made some news. But the funny thing is, being creatures of the Senate, we've been in the Senate, and you have those witnesses every once in a while, particularly when you're in the minority, who have taken personal pot shots and then want to just sort of like distance themselves from all of that.
Right.
They want to pretend like it never happened. Like there's no accountability whatsoever. And it's incumbent upon you, because of the decorum of the Senate,
right,
to try to just ignore all of that. What I particularly appreciated about what you did this week with this Teamsters cat is he took some very personal shots. Very personal shots. And you're like, hey, bud, here we are. Are you still up for it?
Right.
And he still had attitude about the whole thing.
But he didn't stand up. And when I did he might have peed himself. I mean,
I'll be honest. Can I be honest?
Yeah.
When you first stood up, if you just would have stood up, it would have been one thing. But I saw when he stood up and all of a sudden he adjusted his ring, I was like, oh shit, this is somebody who's done this before.
do you know what was going through my head? I mean, it's funny now, but what's going through my head is I was like, dang it, I'm going to break my hand and I want to take my ring off, because when you're fighting all the time, especially when I fought professionally, we always wrapped our hands.
Yeah.
And even though you learn to punch correctly, where you don't break your hand
down,
you just this knuckle here is lined up with your wrist bone here, so it's like your sight on a gun. That's it, and everything's locked in.
Sure.
When you hit like that, it's solid as it can be, and your wrist doesn't. But if you come over just a little bit, and you punch hard, I mean, if you've been trained to punch, you punch hard, you're going to break your hand. And that's all. When I stood up, I was like, I'm going to break my freaking hand. So I was going to take my ring off. I know that sounds funny, but
the first thing I listen, as somebody who grew up where we grew up, when you see a guy stand up and then all of a sudden adjust a ring or something, you're like, there's a different thing here going on. This isn't just talk.
It's the man equivalent of like taking your earrings off. You know?
Yeah, when the woman.
I don't. Yeah. No, never had those. Something you familiar with?
No, I'm saying. Just catching strays over here.
That'll teach you to pipe up, Mike.
You know what? On a serious note, though, what burned my butt so much is, and this is getting deep. Don't feel like it's feel sorry for me, but I was born with my hips in, and my hips broke, and my feet turned in. And so I'd have my feet literally broke and straightened out, and I wore braces on my legs, like Forrest Gump. And doctor said I'd never play sports or walk without a limp and all that stuff. But I'm the youngest of 7, and so you're going to keep up with your siblings or not. But on top of that is I had a really bad speech impediment. And you'll still hear it. You'll hear it come out occasionally, especially when I'm tired or hungry. Yes.
I've never heard that.
You'll hear it. There's a lot of words I just avoid because I can't pronounce them. And I don't hear syllables. So, it was all the way up until the end of 5th grade into 6th grade where I actually learned how to start speaking, but it also affected my reading too. Mm-hmm. And since I don't hear syllables, this hooked on phonics crap didn't work. I can't sound out a word because I don't hear it.
Oh, wow.
And so I had to learn how to speak by by the placement of your tongue,
Yeah.
which is why I'll never speak Spanish, because they speak Spanish on the back of the roof of their mouth, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times when you're seeing me listen to you, you're like, where's he looking at? I'm looking at your mouth just because it was just a habit. And so I say all that because growing up, I couldn't argue with you and I couldn't outrun you. I had to learn how to fight.
You had to beat somebody's ass.
And so I really had a disdain for bullies. I mean, I'm serious. I've had a real disdain for bullies. And this is what this guy came out. I mean, if you read his bio, the guy was suspended in 2013 from his own Teamsters that he was a president of because he was bullying, harassing, and threatening his own team. He was involved in a huge conflict with the Chef film crew where 5 of his Teamsters got arrested for making all types of inappropriate slurs and intimidation to him, and sliced 14 truck tires. And then in 2017, the guy was literally removed by then President James Hoffa from the UPS negotiations because of his behavior. And
if you get tossed by a Hoffa.
By a Hoffa, that's right. I mean, how bad are you? And then
think about what you got to do to do something like that.
Your next step is you get Hoffa boots. Right?
Yeah.
You get concreted because that's what the next, seriously, when you get removed, the next one is. And so in 2022, when he got elected, the guy says, hey, I want to bring back the mafia mentality, or the mob. He said the mob mentality to Teamsters. And then I thought, what a prick.
Yeah.
What an absolute prick. And then of all the people to go after, you're going to come after me? And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm just saying that I'm a little...
No, I get it.
There's 99 other senators you probably want to deal with. I mean, go after J.D. Vance. Right? I love J.D. I'm just giving a hard time.
J.D. might have a soft jaw, though.
But he is younger.
Yep,
and,
sure.
He's in decent shape.
Yeah.
But I just thought... my company, they tried to unionize my company in 2009, 2010. And this guy calls, greedy CEOs bullies. And he actually said one time in a hearing prior to this that you're more likely to be sexually assaulted in a private company versus a union company. And I thought, and I took that seriously. So I've hired hundreds of people. And they came after me, and when they came after me, they literally would show up at my house, show up at my place of business.
Yeah.
When I would do a radio program, which I used to do a program every Saturday morning, I used to do a radio program. They literally showed up and was leaning against my truck. And man, you don't lean against anybody's truck in Oklahoma. You don't do that. I mean, you might be able to get away with that in D.C., but in Oklahoma, I'd rather you talk bad about my mama than lean against my truck. And I come walking out of there, and I'm just like, are you kidding me? They would picket our job sites and say, shame on you. And we dealt with this for over a year, literally over a year. And he's calling us bullies. And I was like, wait a second, I've been on the other side of this. And I would explain it to him, and that's when him and I butted heads this summer. And then it just escalated to yesterday.
Yeah, so. Well, look, I can get that. But for the benefit of our audience who doesn't know your full background, and I thought you did a nice job of explaining in the run-up to all this sort of what it is that you've been through in building your business. I mean, this is not some silver spoon situation that he sort of lays out. You've put hard work in for many years, and for him to sort of suggest that you are just sort of like a greedy CEO who's just trying to put the work
individual.
Yeah. I mean, that I can understand why that hit a nerve.
It wasn't so much the nerve. I can handle that. People say that all the time. It's when he flat out said, you know where to find me.
Oh, yeah, that I knew.
Anytime, any place, cowboy. And I thought, okay. we can settle this. I'm done. And of course, I when I shot back at him this summer, and I said, let's anytime, any place. Here you go, September 30th, Tulsa, Oklahoma, for charity MMA fight. What was not told is that his team actually got back to us and said, hey, would you be willing to do 1 minute rounds in boxing? I was like, sure, whatever. Let's do 1 minute rounds of boxing. Then they came back with another offer, and I was like, sure, I don't care, whatever you guys want to do. And then I literally responded, and I said, listen, I will wear boxing gloves. He can wear MMA gloves.
I don't care. If you guys want to do this, let's do it. And then they went totally silent, and they didn't say anything else. And well, then leading up to this, the guy started getting lippy again with one of, I'll leave the Democrat colleague out, but he goes, well, tell him I don't want to do it in public. We'll fight in the backyard. To which his buddy, who's from New Jersey, who's a congressman, goes, you don't want to do that either.
What is
and then I actually told him. He called me. He was with him. Called me on the phone, and he was with him in the background. And he said, "I said, yeah, sure. Tell him whenever. You do this in New Jersey's backyard. I got a backyard here in Oklahoma, right? Here in D.C. Well, what do we want to do?" And then he went silent. And then this was the next time I saw him. So this wasn't just yesterday. This has been adding,
building.
Yes, and he kept just going and going and going and going. And so I thought,
well, and his response was designed to antagonize.
Yeah.
I mean, he was what his response was like, let's do this.
Yeah.
And you're like,
absolutely.
All right, brother, you got it. And my second favorite part of this was Bernie.
Oh yeah,
Bernie.
Poor guy. I thought he was going to have a heart attack, and I want him to retire, but I don't want him to I don't want him to go out that way.
No. It was so flummoxed. But he's like, oh my God. And then he was like, yeah, you're a senator. And the guy's like, can I respond? He's, no, you can't. Like, he was just trying to get a hold of things. And then my favorite part is you did have total respect, despite our obvious problems with Bernie Sanders as chairman of the particular committee. You sat back down and heard him out, and the hearing continued, but yet you still kind of want to beat this guy's ass, don't you?
It's really not personal like you think. Like I said, I used to get paid to fight. Yeah. Right? So to fight for free seems stupid, but I'll do it for charity. But at the same time, I was sitting there going, why it's bothered me, it's really not bothering me it's not bothering me so much as like it's personal to me. It's like you need to be punched in the face. Yeah. No one ever punched you in the face. You need to be taught a lesson. And that, guys, sometimes there's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
listen, we all grew. You're talking to three Midwestern dudes here.
Yes.
You don't actually learn a lesson until you get punched in the face the
and
first
sometimes
time.
You just need to. And it's not personal. I'll go out and I'll have coffee with you afterwards.
Right.
We'll shake hands. We'll laugh about it. Maybe not that day if you beat me.
Right.
I'm going to try you one more time before we have coffee, but I really wasn't worried about the situation in this one.
No, I don't feel like you should have been. It doesn't seem like he's the tail of the tape seemed particularly advantageous to you on this one.
It was, but it's still not. A lot of people are coming after me right now because of unions. They think I'm anti-unions. I'm not anti-unions. You want to join a union, that's fine. I'm anti-thug.
Yeah.
And that's what this guy is.
Well, I think that's the important message here, right? Is that, look, I grew up in an era of Republican politics. It's a little different than today in that unions in the late 90s to, maybe 2015 were just entirely partisan operations.
Yeah.
Like you didn't actually represent the workers at all. All you did is funnel their dues to political applications that belied all of their values in a lot of different ways. And so I had a huge antagonism. Now, I understand how this has moved a little bit, and there's a huge component of the workforce within unions that are just straight Republican because they disagree with the leadership of it. But we've now gotten to a point where you still have leaders like this.
You're right.
Who are they're just straight partisans.
If you look at their base outside of, let's say, maybe Michigan, but you go to your Midwest states, your Southern states, you can even go to Bakersfield, California.
Yeah.
You go to those states, those union paying due members, right? Not the bosses. They're Republicans.
Yeah.
And I had a tremendous amount of support from the unions in Oklahoma, but we're also a right to work state. And this is a point I made later on in the hearing. I said, you're sitting there saying how good, because Bernie, the whole program was how great unions are and how good they are for the workers. And I started playing up statistics. The statistics are in a right to work state where you choose if you want to be a union member or not. You get paid $4,000 on average a year more than forced union
jobs.
It's amazing how that works.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? So honestly, being a right to work state is better for the union members because they're getting paid. Their average pay goes up too if the non-union members up there, and then you take out their dues because they're paying 1 to 2% of their paycheck for the dues.
Yeah,
they're actually getting hit on the chin with it.
That goes to reelect Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, yes, that's right. It goes to get Biden in office.
Yeah,
he's been great for the unions.
I mean,
and then
Keystone. Let's make that the number one priority, right?
It's another statistic that's interesting too is 50 years ago, 33% of the workforce was represented by a union.
Mm-hmm.
It's 10% now.
Yeah.
It's not working.
But don't you think a lot of that is because of the historic disconnect? Maybe some of this in some different unions is beginning to close a bit, but the disconnect between the workforce and the values of the leadership?
Maybe too, but I think a lot of it has to do with the attitude. I mean, we're in D.C., so this may not apply to D.C., but how many of you guys wake up every single morning and say, I cannot wait until I get an argument today? I mean, that's the first thing you think. Now, D.C.'s different because that's what we do.
Well,
but
Michael notwithstanding.
Yeah,
I think we agree.
I'm motivated by
You're made
rage.
But I mean, most people... Typically, we want to laugh like this and have a good time. Laugh about ourselves, make fun of each other.
Yeah.
We want to have a good time. But unions, that's what all the bosses do, is they stir up discontent with the people that's employing their union members.
Yeah.
I mean, and at some point, that gets old.
Yeah.
What are you doing? I mean, when they force you to go on a strike...
Yeah.
Who's paying you? The UAE or UAW, those guys that were striking, they were meant for making whatever, $1,000 to $1,500 a week to making $500 a week for 7 weeks. I don't know about your all's budget, but I would say most people can't take half or
tough.
3/4 of their check away.
That'd be tough.
Yeah, it's very tough.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think people just get frustrated with that.
Well, I mean, look, peacetime is a particularly difficult moment for professional revolutionaries, right? I mean, if your whole job is to try to stir up a problem, if people are actually getting along, they don't need you, right? I mean, and that's kind of the point. That's
Which is why it doesn't apply to D.C.
Yeah, there is no peacetime.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I think your career is worth examining here because you did a little early childhood stuff, which I find fascinating. But how did you get into politics? Like, how did you get interested in this line of work?
Frustration. The short story is I got fed up, and here's what happened: is my wife and I, we got married young. I was 19, she was 18. That was June of '97.
Yeah.
I changed my life around dramatically August '97. I say that's when I actually gave my heart to the Lord because I was pretty rough, to say the least. I mean,
no.
Believe it or not, I was pretty bad.
Nobody would believe that, Mark Wayne.
And so in September '97, my dad, he had this small plumbing company, and he wasn't feeling well. He had been real sick, and I just turned 20 years old. And he says, "Listen, if you want it, you can have it. If not, I'm closing the doors down." And this was the day after Labor Day in 1997. And my wife and I, we busted our tails. I mean, for 3 years, I had 1 day off total. I'm talking about Saturday, Sunday, holidays. It was February 15th of 98 was the only day I had off for 3 years.
I love that you remember the day.
Well, because it's the only day you had off in 3 years. You kind of
must have been a hell of a day, by the way.
You know what? The reason why I remember it is because I got current with some of my bills.
No.
I was on COD everywhere, and I finally had got caught up. And anyways, we worked, the company grew, we bought some companies, we expanded some companies. We had this one company called Mullin Environmental. Man, it was blowing up. We were working all over the place. We were manufacturing tanks. What we did is we treated water, and we were very successful at it. I mean, in 18 months, it was on trajectory to be my largest company, and we had people all over the country selling this product. And the EPA showed up. And underneath a new regulation in the Clean Water Act, shut us down. We never had a single fine, ever. Never dealt with the EPA. We dealt with the state environmental regulation.
They just showed up and turned the lights off?
Showed up on Monday or Tuesday. I don't know what it is. But I was sitting in my desk on a Friday evening,
and I had or Friday morning, I'm sorry, and I had my boys there because my boys at the time always rode to work with me. They were young. They were very young. And they were eating their McDonald's at my conference table. And I was sitting there going through my head, I got to have a conference call that morning with all the employees of this company because they were scattered all over the place, and explain to them that we're not letting you go, but we're going to transfer your job to one other company, so you need to come back in. Some of these worked out of state. So some of these are going to have to move to come back in.
Tough combo.
And honestly, at the time, it was Speaker Boehner. I didn't know who Speaker Boehner was. I was not involved in politics. I listened to Paul Harvey the rest of the story. That was where I got my politics at, right? I had no idea who John Boehner was. Not a clue. So much so, I'll tell you my first political meeting I went to. So he's up there, and he says that he's got a job package for 5,000 jobs. Now, this was in 2011. Like, I want to say April 2011.
Yeah.
And I thought 2,000 or 5,000 jobs. I said, man, you just cost 100 jobs. And that was the first thing I thought of, is if some faceless bureaucrat is making this decision. And I didn't own a suit. I didn't own a tie. I tell people my fancy pants and jeans I had was black Wranglers that I went to prom in, and I got married in those same proms with the same woman, and both nights were great. Right? They were lucky. they were my lucky pants.
Still, you hold on to those.
Yes, yeah. I mean, we've been still married 26 years. I still have those pants by the way, in my closet.
And worn them 6 times for 6 children.
2 times. No. That's funny. No, I don't keep my pants on. No. So, but what I'm getting at is that I thought, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to run for office. And I went home and told my wife, and she thought I was crazy. I bet. And my first political event I went to, it was Dan Boren. I don't know if you remember Dan Boren and I love Dan Boren.
Yeah.
Right. Dan, and when I found out it was Dan Boren, I was like, I'm not going to run against Dan, because he was a Democrat, but man, he hunted. He was a cool guy.
He was one of the few that you could get along with.
I still talk to Dan all the time.
Yeah.
Like, he donated to me. I mean, it was just all kinds. So I was like, man, I'm not going to run against Dan. Forget it. We're not going to do that. They looked at a labor commission for the state of Oklahoma, and I was like, nah. And then I got a phone call in June that year, and they said Dan's not running. And I was like, oh, crap, I'm actually going to have to do this. And so my first political event I ever went to was August of 97. And I stood up and said, I'm running for Congress. At that time, there was 8 other people that was at that meeting. I was the only one not in a suit. I was
2011.
2011. Yeah. And so I was the only one not in a suit. Everybody else is in suits. And I'm dressed like I am right now, jeans and button-up shirt. And they asked me if I was going to vote for John Boehner. I had no idea who he was.
You're like, who's that?
And I was like, well, it depends on who's running against him. I have no idea who he is. I mean, I had no idea. John brought that up when I met him later.
I'm sure he did.
He says, what does that mean, depend on who's running against me? And I said, sir, I got to be honest, I had no idea who you were. He thought it was funny. He just kind of laughed. And but it was just so raw to me.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, if I knew what I was going to have to go through once I got in office, I don't know if you could have talked me into it.
Yeah.
I mean, because when I first got in office, I was audited for 3.5 years.
Are you serious?
I had the IRS and Department of Labor in my office for 3.5 years.
Do you think Lois Lerner may have had something to do with that?
I talked to Eric Cantor about it. I talked to Senator Inhofe about it, and they said, man, you're being 100% harassed. That's what you're doing. They actually sent me a letter and said that if I do not give them heads up before I come to my own corporate office, that they could charge me for intimidating a federal employee doing their job. No, so I'd have to call before I could go into my own corporate office and give them a heads up that I was coming so they could leave. 3.5 years. They left my office the day Trump was sworn into office. The day. Didn't take anything with them. Now, we'd spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in attorney fees and CPA fees. I can't even begin to tell you how many hours that my CFO and her assistant spent, the thousands upon thousands upon thousands of copies of papers.
Unbelievable.
Not one single fine. Fast forward, Biden gets in office. A year after he gets in office, I get audited again.
No way.
I promise you.
Are you serious?
Promise you. And in fact, the audit just stopped this summer.
And they finally sent us a letter and said no change. That's all they said. There would be no change. And found nothing.
In the end, there's nothing.
Nothing. Didn't find a penny. Department of Labor didn't find nothing, which because we don't. We put everything on board. I mean on board, like on top of the table. And the IRS never found anything. I mean, nothing.
But surely they gave you money to cover all the attorneys.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's exactly how that works.
Out of the goodness of their own.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they wrote me a reimbursement check.
Yeah, we couldn't take it from Mark Wayne. We got to get it from the Venmo accounts.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We'll hire some more agents.
They gave me Bitcoin.
But like if you're sitting around as a faceless bureaucrat, as you said in the IRS, and you're thinking about the conservatives to intimidate, perhaps a former MMA guy named Mark Wayne isn't your best target. You may create a little bit of a problem for yourself, as we have seen now.
Yes.
And what has been so astounding to me about your transition from just a regular business guy to not really knowing, even party politics or anything about that, to now a United States Senator, to having not only, and this incident, this is nothing, but what you're doing on a day-to-day basis is holding people accountable for a whole range of things and working hard on behalf of your constituency to a point where it's like inner motivated. You can see, we've been around the Senate long enough to see there are some people who they run for Senate, they want to become famous, they want to write a book, they want to get on TV, they want to do whatever.
I'd write a book, but I couldn't read it. So. I'm kidding, guys.
But like the moment this guy gets there, you just feel something different. You know what I'm talking about, Ashbrook. We were around the Senate for a lot of years.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I feel like you're the exact kind of guy that needs to be in Washington, because the Senate and the House are full of these self-important guys in Brooks Brothers suits who've looked in the mirror their entire lives and thought, you know what, I'm going to be in charge of everybody. And what you did your entire life was support your family, support the people who depended on you at your office when you were trying to turn over payroll. And there just are not enough guys like you in charge in Washington. And I feel like the more guys we get like you, the better off we're going to be.
Yeah, well said.
I appreciate that. And I will say that we do need business guys or veterans. We need someone that's had an identity up there. But I not to defend everybody, because you definitely describe some of them. But man, there's some great guys too. It's just not the ones you see on TV.
Yeah.
It's the ones that are working, that's doing things.
Yeah, we say this all the time.
Yeah, the ones that are on TV are the ones that have aspirations to run for president, or if they're representatives, they want to run for Senate. I had no aspiration to run for Senate, by the way. Zero.
Yeah.
You won't find anybody that ever heard me say that I want to run for Senate. In fact, when you tell me, it would make my stomach sick. I mean, the last thing I want to do is run statewide.
People are lucky you did. I mean, people are real lucky you did.
I don't know. It depends on who you talk to. Don't read my Twitter feeds or X feed or whatever it's called now. It's to me, when I first got up here in a house in 2013, I remember dates, sorry, but it was truly February 14th, and it was the only holiday my wife and I never spent apart.
Valentine's Day,
because even when I was working, she would jump in the truck with me, because I worked nights, and she'd just jump in the truck with me, and we always spent Valentine's night together. Which, by the way, meant one thing: it was a guaranteed.
Yeah, well, you were wearing your pants.
You guys follow that one.
You had the black jeans on too, so you know.
Always work on it. But this Valentine's, I was totally missing it. It wasn't a guarantee. I was by myself, and so I was sitting on the Capitol steps.
Did you put the black jeans on anyway and do some deep knee beds on C-SPAN?
I didn't want to ruin the karma of those jeans.
Okay,
I just left those alone.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting there on the Capitol, and I was really, man, I was complaining. I was feeling sorry for myself. You guys ever had those days where you just kind of feel sorry for yourself?
Yeah.
I was having a true pity party.
Yeah.
And I was like, what am I? It was intimidating. I mean, there were some guys up here with some outstanding backgrounds and just some crazy, degrees.
Yeah.
And what do I have to offer? Who the heck am I? I'm this guy that would rather be running my cattle, being left alone, running my plumbing company, or growing one of the other companies. Because we have a bunch of other things other than plumbing, and we got into banking and restaurants, and we got into electrical and HVAC and construction and everything else.
Yeah.
But we got in a lot of other stuff. But really, who to identify myself is I'm a guy that can lose money really good raising cattle, and I make it back in a truck.
Yeah,
and so but it's this definition of insanity. It's this is the cycle I'm in. And I was just like, I'm saying, I'm being just real with you guys. I was like, Lord, why? Why the heck am I up here? And I was just, this sound out of my mind just like, grow up. Just suck it up. I was like, Lord, I didn't think you talk like that. and then I started putting things into perspective. We all make decisions based on two things: our life experiences and the way we're raised.
Yeah.
Everybody, I don't care who's listening to us, or all three of you guys. Your life experiences and the way you're raised is a way you make decisions.
Yeah.
I don't care what the circumstances are. And I thought, you know what, my life experience is a lot different than these guys. I get it. And that's where the value comes in.
Yeah.
Is we're going to look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And when you have these bureaucrats that are coming in front of the committee and they're talking, you have the Department of Labor coming in. You have the secretary that they're trying to confirm for secretary for labor come in.
Yeah.
And you have the director of EPA come in. And like, man, you can't pull wool over my eye. I've been there. I'm still dealing with you guys. I know exactly what you're doing. So don't come flying off at me about how great you are and what the agency does.
I've seen the end product.
Yeah, I like to say this all the time. Government's position was to create an environment for entrepreneurs, for go-getters, for guys that's going to get up every day and make something of themselves, like you guys. You're going to do something outside the box. You're going to be creative to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
What has happened now is government has begun to think that they are the solution, and they become the problem. And all we're saying is just get out of our way. I get there needs to be some regulation. But the heavy-handed part of government is what we ran from, and that's what we have become. And
you can't wrap every American in bubble wrap.
That's right. And it stifles entrepreneurship. Going back to bubble wrap. People are blowing up with their opinions about the idea that I was called a bully out on what he was saying. And I'm like, what do you expect? Before I was a senator, I was a guy in Oklahoma, and I've been that guy from Oklahoma a heck of a lot longer than I've been a senator.
Yeah.
And that behavior is still, as I go back to, you make life decisions based on how you're raised in your life experiences.
Yeah.
Being in the Senate in a suit isn't my life experience.
Well, listen, it resonates with a bunch of us, and we appreciate how real you are and what you're doing up there. You're welcome here anytime. Would love to make this a regular occurrence because you're a whale of a guy. I got 3 questions for you to end this thing, though.
Okay.
First
No,
thing,
my teeth are fake. I got them knocked out. But they do look good.
Yeah, they do look good. You got a hell of a dentist.
Yeah, I melt them in.
Amazing. All right, so first one is, if you can plan your last meal on Earth, what would it be?
Macaroni, cheese, and little smokies.
Oh, my God.
Keep it simple, man.
You are so Oklahoma. That's unbelievable.
And I want Kraft. I don't want Velveeta. I don't like that sticky cheese. I want Kraft.
You want the powder. The powder.
With the powder,
cheese.
yeah. It's much better.
Yeah.
And little smokies with a little bit of honey sauce on them, man. It's stuff good.
It's like the Hungry Man TV dinner wasn't available.
Yeah.
Whatever. Go to my house here. You're going to find Pop-Tarts and cereal and bam.
All right, so second, if you never got into this line of work, and now it's been, 10, 14 years, if you never got into it all, blue sky. But it's not just about, would you go back to doing what you were doing? Obviously, you loved what you were doing. You've expressed that. But you've got 14 years of life, blue sky, that you could do absolutely anything that you wanted to do. And you could manifest skill sets that you may or may not have. Like Ted Cruz, for example, wanted to be a power forward for the Houston Rockets. I don't see that happening.
Huge fortune. I mean, that's that is definitely going to happen for that guy. That is in his future.
So, but with the benefit of retrospect and your life experience here over the last few years, like, what would you do?
If I could pick anything to do and I could make a living at it, it literally would just run cattle. I love being on the ranch. It's my favorite time. A few weeks ago, we were weaning our yearlings, and pneumonia hit on them. It's bacteria pneumonia, which when bacteria pneumonia hits your cattle, they start dropping dead pretty quick.
Oof.
And my ranch foreman was on vacation, just convenient. All the time to go on
great
vacation.
Timing.
Right. And one of the ranch hands there, he called me. He said, "Boss," he said, "cows are dying." And he told me what was happening. So the mouths turned right. And I was like, "Man, that's pneumonia." And he was new. He hasn't been on the place. I said, "Man, that's pneumonia." I said, "We're going to have to get the vet out there quick." And the vet came out there, a good friend of mine. He says, "Mark, when you got bacteria pneumonia," he said, "I'm compounding a thing for you, but you're going to have to work all your cows." And as I got 2 boys wrestling at Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
I got 4 kids still at home. And I called my boys in Oklahoma State, and I actually called John Smith, the head coach there, and I was like, "John, I need my boys home." And he goes, "What?" And I said, "Told him what happened." He says, "All right, I'll have to go get them for practice."
Really?
And they came in. My 4 kids came in. My wife was there. My brother-in-law and my sister-in-law was there. And my mom and dad came down to help. And, man, we worked cattle from 8 o'clock at night until 10 the next morning. And I loved it.
Especially with your whole fam.
I mean, let me tell you, my language changes when I'm working cattle. Okay, I get mad. I want to physically harm something really bad. Like that's when I actually lose my temper. But it is so fun because you get one of your kids get kicked, and it's hilarious, right? Everybody laughs, especially you get kicked in the nuts. You know, everybody starts laughing at you, and it's just
by cattle.
No,
You
it
kicked
hurts.
in the nuts.
No, it hurts.
What do you mean it hurts? That feels like it could be a lifelong debate.
Yeah, but you laugh about it, especially if it bruises later. But so my point is that if you ask me anything that I could do, I would love to do that. I love that. That is that's my favorite thing to do. But on the other side of it, I love my employees.
Yeah.
I mean, my employees worked for me a long time. My CFO, she started me as just a secretary, and she's been working for me for 24 years. You know, my CEO, COOs, all of them have 20 years plus working for me. That's to see their lives grow, to see them come in with nothing and then be very successful. That's probably the coolest thing of all.
Well, it's a sign of a great leader. I'll be honest with you. I mean, it's literally the dictionary definition.
But you should come work out with me.
I don't want.
It's called birth control.
Listen, believe me. I think I'm done having kids. I don't want it to be forced upon me.
You think?
Yeah,
there's the only way to do that is let's go.
Come on.
This
isn't about me. This is about you.
Yeah, I'm just saying. The way we do this on the ranch is we band them. We did this big rubber band, and we go around them, and we band it.
I don't like your suggestion.
We'll do it for free, won't we, guys? Hey, they got your back. They never said a thing.
No, they were all like, "That sounds terrible." And I know I'm next. So no. Okay. Well, that's an answer. Yeah. That's a good one. It's a good one. All right. So the third question is, our view is, and this is a little esoteric, but our view is that almost everybody successful is motivated by one of two things: a thrill of victory or the agony of defeat. And it's not that anybody likes to lose or anybody hates to win. It's what motivates you to get to the next level. Keep pushing, right? So the iconic example of the agony of defeat person is a Michael Jordan, who wins NBA titles, enjoys it for 16 seconds, and then thinks about how somebody slighted him when he walked off the court, and that's what motivates him to go try to get another NBA title. The other side is the thrill of victory, which is a self-motivated person that says, "I think I can do this. I'm going to go out and do it." Right? And there's not, to be honest with you, it's a 50-50 split.
Right.
We've had 200 and some odd guests on this show. It's a 50-50 split, but they're all one of these two things.
So I tell wrestling in my family is what everybody does, right? In my family, you wrestle and like it or wrestle and don't. We're not going to be a Ford for any basketball team. We're vertically challenged. Okay, 5'10" is tall for my family.
Low center of gravity.
Yeah, and so I tell all my kids, even my girls even wrestle. If you're too afraid to lose, you'll never be bold enough to win.
And because if you're too afraid to lose, you'll just hold on. You're just going to hold on. It's the guy that's holding on to the edge of the building and he won't do a chin up, knowing that eventually his hands are going to wear out, but he can't. He can't pull himself off that ledge.
What a great visual!
And so that it's constantly in my head. I'm going to be bold. I'm going to go down swinging. And if I do lose, I'm going to evaluate it just long enough to say, man, I missed it. I should have done this, and I'm going to get back in.
That's a thrill of victory guy right there. That's a thrill of victory.
What was what was your go-to move in wrestling?
See, now you're gonna.
It depends on what the guy gave me. I was really good with what we call a high crotch series.
Oh yeah.
That feels right. That's it. That's exactly what my evaluation.
Now they're making fun of wrestling now.
Wrestling is.
So
a high crotch move.
I'm so
that
glad.
Feels right.
I'm so glad you're here because when I talk like that, they make fun of me.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to make fun of the both of you now.
You kick his ass. So.
Well, you could too if you wrestled.
Yeah.
I mean, he probably played basketball. Come on.
I mean, look at how short I am. Are you kidding me? I'm a baseball guy.
I'm sure
that
you had a good.
explains a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Baseball guys think they're the toughest guys in the world.
Yeah.
Like you hit a ball.
You hit a ball, and you try to chase butterflies in the outfield.
Yeah, I mean, granted, they will be tough with a ball bat in their hand.
Yeah,
but you better get one good swing because I'm taking the ball bat out of your hand otherwise.
Well, we're charging the mound. We're charging the mound. And
Nolan Ryan's the only one with a good punch I've ever
seen
in baseball.
I take great comfort knowing the most effeminate thing that I did was wear stirrups, whereas you guys had singlets. And and then like a move is a high crotch when you're putting somebody's stuff right in your face and you're like, I won. I won. That doesn't feel like winning to me.
My wife put on stirrups once too to deliver my kids. Whatever.
He got you there.
Mark Wayne Mullin, ladies and gentlemen. I love it. Listen, you're welcome here anytime. This has been a pleasure. For those people wanting to follow along with what you're doing or help you out, where do they go?
Is that official or campaign? I don't know.
Do both.
Well, we're here to serve. I wake up every morning and say, love the people, love the call. No joke. That's what I do. If you need anything, I don't care if you're in the state or not. It's mullin.house.gov. And we're there.
That's Senate.
.house.
Jeez, I mean, listen.
Listen. Mullin at Senate.
Is that right?
What is it? Mullin.senate.gov.
See,
you know
lucky,
better than I do.
You're lucky you're around us Senate guys. You guys graduated out of that place.
I mean, and I'm serious by this. I enjoy helping people. I know that's funny.
Yeah.
But when you help this veteran or this person that I was at I was with our troops in Djibouti, Africa. Yeah. Djibouti. That's what it's called. Djibouti.
And he's the one guy on the plane, by the way, that laughed at that.
100%. I still laugh about it. I told my kids, and they're like, "You're going where, Dad? You're going my booty?" No, I'm kidding. So we were there visiting our troops. We had 1,200 National Guardsmen that's been deployed there, and so we spent last weekend. We spent Veterans Day with them, and a lady walked up to me and she said, "Sir, can I take a picture with you?" And she was a young lady, and I said, "Sure, absolutely." She said, "I just want to tell you first of all, thank you." And I said, "Okay." She said, "You helped my dad get his benefits back,
dude."
And she said it literally changed our life.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this lady, and I said, "Where are you from?" And she said, "Mogi." And I thought, man, that's why you do it.
Yeah.
That right there is just cool. So when
one of those moments carries you for a year.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. That's why I say love the people, love the call. I'm serious. I don't care where you're at. I don't care, what state you're in. If we can help, just holler at us. Let's go to work.
I love it. Yeah. Listen, you're doing this for all the right reasons. Senator Mark Wayne Mullin, thank you for coming in.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
I mean, there's nothing not to like about him. And my favorite thing, we went into this in the interview, my favorite thing is that he is not like everybody else who is in Washington, who grew up looking in the mirror, making speeches to themselves, hoping that someday they could be a politician. He's a real person who did real things, and that is exactly what we need in Washington today.
Bingo.
I liked personally that he finally put Holmes in his place on baseball, which was great.
Did he?
He did.
Because
the stirrups line was, that was legendary.
No, it was good.
It was legendary.
Don't get me wrong, but I'm going to let the listeners decide on whether or not stirrups on a baseball player are more offensive than crank in the face, which is what you guys were calling victory.
No, you don't.
Crank in the face doesn't seem like victory to me, Michael.
No, you don't understand the sport. It's okay.
No, you're right.
You don't.
You're right. No, you're absolutely
I know.
right. Crank in the face is hard for me.
That
to
isn't what
understand.
it is. That isn't what a high
well,
crutch is.
I've seen it. I've seen it. I've seen it with my own eyes. I can't unsee what I've
Okay.
seen from wrestling matches. All right, so we're gonna get to our 5 stars, and then we're gonna go to our winners of the week. But to start our 5 stars, we always start it with a voice.
Okay, so this first one is from MDN 2017, and the title is No Listen, I Think That's Right. And MDN 2017 writes, listening to the fellas from the 47th floor of the Salesforce Tower here in Indianapolis, I can nearly see the dumpster fire of Cincinnati to my southeast.
Let's go.
I love that we ordered this in a way to make him read that.
Let's go.
This superb pod is led by a delightful Minnesotan
No,
who
thank
became
you.
a man amidst the talent-ridden streets of ASU.
There it is.
But be careful, because he always disagrees with you right before agreeing with the line, quote, no, listen, I think that's right. Close quote. The balance of the characters here provide excellent political insights while sliding in depressing reflections on their squandering NFL team.
I mean, this is all.
Mine are not
that's accurate.
squandering at all. I'm on the rise.
Highly recommend the pod, given they have great intel and their middle America roots perfectly call out the nonsensical Beltway viewpoints that get tossed around D.C. in that echo chamber. But be careful, if you have a child from the ages of 2 to 10 and have endured the pain of travel with your kiddos, because Smug will make you want to smash your phone with a sledgehammer when he blindly takes shots at every single American family that uses commercial air travel. Keep it up, fellas.
Dude, that had something for everybody.
It really did.
Mm-hmm.
He took us all out.
Yeah.
Excellent.
He knows.
That was an excellent take. I mean,
Fantastic.
whoever this dude is, MDN 2017, buddy, make yourself known, because that is fantastic.
Is that Matt Duncan?
What a great tuck.
Matthew Duncan?
No.
MD?
Oh, wait, are we saying that are you accusing that as being Duncan's brother?
They were
He
were
does-
pro Indianapolis.
He does not work in the Salesforce Tower.
Okay. All right. There you go. Michael, what's next?
This one is from Voter in Virginia. The title is Bangers, Bears, and Bitterness Bangers. Wow. Wonderful alliteration. Voter in VA writes, fellas, the program is great and keeps getting better. You help us all navigate the crazy political landscape in which we are living with great insights and humor. Keep it up. Bears. To all the guests who keep saying that they could take a bear, you are smoking something.
Yep. No, he's right.
I have been hunting for 30 plus years, and in my cabin hangs a bear skin rug that a buddy and I shot years ago.
Wow.
This was only a medium-sized black bear, and we shot it 5 times before it went down. These were good shots with rifles. He just kept running.
Terrifying.
When I found him, I had to put a mercy shot in him. When my buddy arrived on the scene a few minutes later, he picked up the paw to see how big it was, and the bear groaned and swiped at him.
No.
Think the cow in me, myself, and Irene. So no, nobody is taking out a bear unarmed.
Yeah.
Bitterness.
He's got more.
More. I am a faithful minion of the show, but I am also a little bitter, to be honest. That is because my wife is 2-time guest of the show, Emily Seidel.
Oh, yeah.
Now we get to the payoff.
Yep, we knew we had a good one.
Excellent reveal.
CEO of AFP. Hashtag jealous. While I sit here thinking of a talent that might eventually make me program guest worthy, please keep fighting the good fight. We are all counting on you. Faithfully, Chris Seidel, minion, killer of Bruins, and slightly jealous spouse.
Oh, that's
That was
such a
excellent.
great take.
So good.
And I bet that bearskin rug has to bring like such a feeling of like fulfillment and
Yeah,
accomplishment every time you
I
look
think
at it.
I'd wear it. You know how people put it?
Seriously.
I think I would just like walk around the house with that thing draped around my shoulders, head on top of my head, and just like sashay it around.
I mean, that's just like an all-time accomplishment.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Smug, what do you got?
So this is from Bitewise. The title is Exposing Soros-Captured Animal Control. They write, the go-to place for clear, human-biased coverage of the clear proliferation of weak, Soros-backed animal control officials across the world. The left's attack is not just on the West, but on humanity in general, and the fellas are doing yeoman's work covering what the world needs to know. Never missed an episode, but had to stop listening on the treadmill for fear of a horrific accident from laughter. Thank you so
love
much.
that.
That's terrific.
Well, I mean, a lot of credit goes to our resident patriot in this regard, John Ashbrook, who's been leading the charge against the animal uprising here for quite some time.
Yeah, he's been doing the heavy lifting. I got to say, I think this person has identified something, though, with the weakness of our animal control officials.
Yeah, totally.
Like, I experienced that firsthand when my attic was invaded by raccoons.
Yeah.
And I got next to no help.
Right.
You know, like, they basically told me the only way they would take the raccoon was if it was diseased. Like,
Well,
it's in my home.
Could you please conduct some lab work on these raccoons?
I got news for you. If it's a raccoon in the suburbs, it is, by definition, diseased. It carries all kinds of diseases.
Did you shoot him?
I trapped him. I procured the services of a trapper.
Yes.
Who put a trap on my roof, and caught one raccoon. I also went to Home Depot, got 2 traps myself, placed them around my property.
Of course you did.
Cooked that raccoon, and it was multiple raccoons. Just a delicacy.
You bagged them and cooked them and ate them.
And I put the.
That's legit as hell. You at least make a hat out of them?
I put the.
He's gonna be walking around like Davy Crockett.
This fucker thought he could sit in my attic. Now he's sitting on my head.
I caught the other 2. I caught the other 2 myself.
The head resides in its driveway to this day. Oh my God, I absolutely love it. Okay, all right, so we got to get to winners of the week. It's an interesting week, right? Because you come off of a debate where we already on Tuesday expressed who we felt did well and didn't do well, but there's some things happening. And this is, look, we've said this for a number of weeks that things are building. They really are building. And you can feel the intensity. For those of us who are in this line of work, you get to a point where you're within eyesight of the goalposts and like the intensity just starts ramping up, and all the things that you wanted people to do 3-6 months ago all of a sudden are just compressed into a point where it's like a do or die moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they know that like 3 come in, 1 comes out type cage match.
Mm-hmm.
And we're getting there towards Iowa. So, Ashbrook, as you look at the landscape this week alone, what do you think?
Well, you said it was a very interesting week, and I agree with you. But I also think it was an incredibly uncomplicated week as far as the presidential race goes. Nikki Haley in an Emerson poll is surging in the state of New Hampshire. But you know what happened the day that poll came out? Ron DeSantis put out an ad, put out videos, put out everything with their entire team to attack her for things that she said here and for things that she said on Fox, and it seemed to gain traction. The one thing that did not change is the position of Donald Trump, who leads this campaign
We're doing this again.
across the map.
In a row, I feel
leads this campaign across the map, including in a YouGov poll where he's leading, and for the first time today in a Quinnipiac poll where he is ahead of Joe Biden by 2 points. It's never happened before. He was trailing him in the summer, trailing him earlier in the fall.
Never happened in that poll, is what you're saying?
It has never happened in the context of this race. And all of a sudden,
there's been many
the New York.
I think by Quinnipiac.
For Quinnipiac,
okay.
That's what's new here. In the context of this race, it's the first time that Donald Trump is leading Joe Biden in the Quinnipiac poll, and therefore, because of the man's staying power and his current dominance this week over Joe Biden, Donald Trump won.
Okay, we'll take it. Michael?
No. This is a tough one for me.
It is. I feel like you're probably conflicted.
Well, I'm a little conflicted because I'm always looking to my right on what Smug's going to do because now our winners of the week
is entirely reliant on what you said.
1,000%.
Yeah.
So, look, I think to Ashbrook's point on Nikki's position on anonymous accounts online, I disagree with that opinion. There's a lot of anonymous, silence do good. Thomas Paine, they're like the founders of this country published anonymously for a reason. It's I believe in the First Amendment. what I would say though to like some of the people online, again, I know I'm attacking DeSantis people here. Smug loves when I do that, but like, you know, if you tweet a lot and stuff, like you think that this is the thing that's going to end her campaign. Like I don't think so. Like just like you got to get out of your bubble a little bit and realize there's a lot of people like young kids and stuff that are very concerned about
Republican primaries, not Twitter.
It's not Twitter. No, there's a lot of people with young kids who are worried about like anonymous people DMing them online, you know, pedophiles, stuff like that. And like when you like we've been doing this show for a while now, and you know, you get a little minor acclaim and all of that, but you also get a lot of attention. You get people like DMing you being like, I would like to physically hurt you. So like when you are like an anonymous account online, you think like the First Amendment is an unalloyed good, which it is a good, don't get me wrong. But like there are people online that say terrible fucking things to people like me.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens from like anonymous accounts, you can understand why people would be like, you know what, maybe we should do something about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I think
now ultimately it doesn't bother me because I don't just believe in the First Amendment. I believe in the Second Amendment.
That's what I'm saying. Second Amendment, first and second. But we also have chosen this life.
It's a good line.
And you know, there's not everybody who has. I mean, if you're getting attacked as a suburban house mom who's got kids to protect, and there are people that are saying, "I'm coming to your house,"
right?
Like, you can understand.
Yeah, being anonymous is sometimes very, very important for those people. And think about people who are like, I don't know, political activists in other places around the globe where, you know, governments don't take so kindly on that.
Now, she's since clarified exactly what it is that she's meant, right, Ashbrook?
Yeah, she's come out and she's made it clear that what she's talking about principally are foreign actors, people in China and Russia and Iran who are trying to manipulate American politics and act like they're an American, making tweets and everything as if they were an American, but we all know they're just a foreigner, and we don't care about what they think anyway.
Okay, it's a distinction, right?
So I'll do this. So, because her campaign released a statement. This is from Phil Wegman. I'll just read it. So, you know, there's no interpretation involved. It says, Nikki Haley campaign tells me she believes, quote, Americans have a right to free speech, including having anonymous accounts on social media. She doesn't support letting foreign bad actors, quote, create anonymous accounts to spread chaos and anti-American filth among our people. So I think that's a little different than, I'll have to go back and see the video. I think that's a little different, but I agree if that's her position that domestically you should be allowed to have an anonymous account as long as you are not essentially breaking any law.
Well, as we discussed in the program, she would have a problem.
Yeah. Well, and so I can't say that Nikki won the week in that because it was a stumble. It was a pretty big stumble. It happened here on the Ruthless Variety program. I think for a lot of people, they see it as a stumble. I think Smug is the winner of the week.
Oh.
Because he finally gets the trip to Gitmo he always wanted.
Oh.
I was gonna be so nice with my pick,
but you're not now.
Now I'm not.
You were never gonna be nice.
I was, and here's what
bullshit.
I was gonna start by saying. So on Twitter, Duncan's father came to my defense. He was like, I stand with Smug. I saw that in a tweet, and I was like, that is wonderful. I'm not going to attack Duncan.
You can set your watch to Dale. Dale Duncan is as good a friend as anybody is ever going to have.
He stands with patriots like me.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? I'll give Duncan a pass. But no, not anymore. So I say DeSantis is the big winner.
That doesn't bother me at all.
His supporters continue to attack Duncan online ruthlessly. They attack him, and he comes in here and he gets mad about it. So I think that's the number one sign that they are succeeding. Whenever you're like, Duncan's in the tank for Trump or Duncan's in the tank for Nikki, all of that is true, and it makes him angry when you say it.
I think that makes sense. Let me be the one that's attacked this week. The reason why Nikki is getting excoriated this week is 3 headlines. The first headline is Citadel Chief Griffin, we're talking about Ken Griffin, weighs backing Haley in Republican primary. This is a gentleman who has thrown $50 to $100 million behind super PACs supporting Republican causes over the last couple of cycles. He's a patriot's patriot in terms of trying to get Republicans elected. He has previously said that he is not interested in participating at all in the Republican primary. Well, that's a different headline from CNBC. Second, Axios. Nikki Haley and Jamie Dimon hold private convos on the economy. That is, for those of you, and look, there's an awful lot of you who are going to be like, oh my God, this is exactly what we thought Nikki Haley was, right? Like a C-suite neocon who's just like, doing all the corporate stuff that we imagine her to be doing. The difference is, and the reason how vociferous the attacks are against her is because when Jamie Dimon says something like that, when this is out there, and this is according to Axios, he's a signal to a whole lot of people in New York who have a bunch of money that it's safe to try to play in this primary.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like if he'll sit down and have a conversation with you, it's a almost good housekeeping seal of approval if this is a serious person.
It's a serious person that we should consider getting behind. Lastly, leading Tim Scott backer to co-host New York fundraiser for Nikki Haley, according to Politico. Eric Levine has been raising money for Scott, who dropped out of the race this last Sunday. So if you're looking at this from a campaign's point of view, what you're seeing is this migration of major capacity dollar fundraiser that's migrating towards Nikki Haley after that last debate, and seeing her as someone who ultimately could be the last person standing to take on Trump. Now, am I giving this like this is why Nikki Haley is going to win? No. But in terms of winner of the week,
yeah, that's the question.
Those three headlines alone, along with all the scrutiny that she's gotten based on the comments, and rightly, right? I mean, look, I don't actually agree with any of that. I don't think that there should be driver's license for people on online. I mean,
I think honestly the solution is as simple as ban TikTok.
Ban TikTok. That's, I've said this from the very beginning.
Right, keep the foreigners out.
Oh my God.
I've said this from the wow.
I mean, it's pretty simple.
I want that on a soundboard.
Hey, can we get the soundboard?
Yeah,
Spaghetti.
Bring the soundboard.
Spaghetti. Can we get? I know you got to talk to Wolf about it, but get the soundboard back in here. We had a lot more fun with that thing. It was just absolutely ridiculous.
Because I mean, like that guy, that computer scientist who did the kind of reverse engineering of the algorithm and found that anyone essentially under the age of 25 on TikTok was getting bombarded with pro-Hamas stuff.
Yeah.
Which is why you see all these kids doing stupid, horrific shit like pulling down posters of kids who were kidnapped. Because, like, again, TikTok is where everyone under 25 goes to for answers before they Google it. Like, if they want to see, like, how do I get a good chicken parm recipe? They don't hit Google. They type that into TikTok. Like, that's their first stop.
They're basically asking China, what should I think about
Bingo.
this?
And that's what happens.
And let me
China
just say,
completely uses their control to influence America.
Get them out.
From my perspective, there's only one right answer to that question. It's ban TikTok.
Ban TikTok.
That's it. There is no other right answer. There's no like meddling in current accounts. There's no adjusting of speech controls, fact checks, all that.
Yeah.
Like drivers, like that. None of that stuff is something that I'm interested in at all. There's one answer. It's ban TikTok.
Well, because I mean, like the problem is, and we saw all this during COVID, right? It's like, okay, so the driver's license is associated to an account. You can still be comfortably smug or whatever, but they have your government ID. What happens when you start saying some shit they don't like about, the COVID policies?
Yep.
Right? Boop. And there's some bureaucrat, because we already know from all of the expose of the Twitter files that the government and, the intelligence community was pressuring these tech companies to do things about quote unquote misinformation online. Now they suddenly have your driver's license.
Not only that, but according to Eric Schmidt's investigation that he was doing when he was AG of Missouri, they actually had FBI agents working on this.
Yeah.
So now you got an FBI file.
Yeah.
Like, you want to talk about some scary shit.
Yeah, it's like real slippery slope stuff. But back to your point on the fundraising front and the major
And this
donors.
is the point. And I would say,
yeah,
by virtue of the fact that you had Trump forces, which, by the way, I loved your tweet. Trump has a tweet for everything when he called for this exact same thing that Nikki Haley called for.
Right. With good reason.
But but from the tweet, you had the Trump forces, you had the DeSantis forces, and the Ramaswamy people all jumping ugly on Nikki at the same time. They have not done that until this week. Why do you think that is?
Yeah.
Why do we think that is?
Yeah.
It's because she's a formidable
she's on the
force
rise.
at this moment in time.
She's on the
Now,
rise.
maybe that changes next week. Maybe it changes 2 weeks from now. But it's hard for me to ignore that in terms of who's winner.
It's
Yeah,
dude. I think
this is a well argued point.
It's a great point. The one person though in that list there, former Tim Scott donor, is sort of proof that money really isn't determinative in this process by and large. It certainly can be helpful, but Tim Scott had a heck of a lot of money too.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
But late money is different.
No, I know what you mean.
You know what I mean? When it starts migrating at the end, it means that somebody's got actual momentum.
And the point I made on Megyn Kelly is like something that I think people underestimate about Nikki is she's done this much and gone this far with not that much.
Yeah.
Like
the expectations were not there.
When all the other campaigns had a lot more money.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but Smug's still my winner of the week.
I love
Great
it.
pick.
I love it. All right, so those are our winners of the week. Here's a story that unbelievably, and I thought actually Ashbrook put this best today when
Yes,
he
he did.
highlighted the Washington Post article. There was a massive 300,000 person march in Washington, D.C. that was all peaceful, thoughtful,
right,
pro-Israel, pro-peace
right,
rally that was held here that basically was completely ignored in the same way that all of these news stations fronted like the New York rally of Palestinians who were like assaulting people and pulling down, telephone poles and things like that in New York. Like this was a very different deal and it didn't make headlines.
Right. There was no vandalism. There's no graffiti on the walls. There's no violence in the street. You hit the nail on the head. Nobody's putting red paint on the gates of the White House because, frankly, they'd seen enough red on the walls in these kibbutzes in Israel.
Yeah.
They know what real pain is.
They don't need to vandalize.
And they are marching simply for their right to have something to say because they believe that Jewish people should not be persecuted simply because they're Jewish. And the media just didn't cover it yesterday. We talked about, this, but like the Washington Post didn't even put it on their front page. 290,000 people marching in Washington, D.C., and they relegated the whole thing to their metro section.
Unbelievable.
Can I just make an observation just based on it also wasn't covered in the news, but Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader in the House, and the Speaker of the House, Johnson, and members of Senate Republican leadership and the Majority Leader Chuck Schumer all came to this rally.
Yep.
And they all spoke at this rally.
Right.
Do you know who was missing? Anyone from the Biden administration. Not a single person. Now, again, we've said this from the very beginning, from October 7th. What Biden said immediately, well, not immediately, he waited a few days and longer than I would have liked, but what he said in the week afterwards was very good in terms of standing with Israel and understanding that there are terrorists and then there are the Israelis here. Palestinian people of goodwill are stuck in between this because they're being terrorized by Hamas
Right.
entirely. And we saw clarity, moral clarity briefly. And then you started hearing a lot about
staffers grumbling of like, why isn't he standing with
exactly. This is the point. This is the one point where I'll quibble because as Jews were marching with Christians and Muslims on the National Mall, Joe Biden may not have been there, but his staff was at that very moment. 400 people and Joe Biden's staff were releasing a statement saying, "We stand with Hamas. We think that what they did on October 7th was okay and didn't deserve retribution."
Guys, I can't wrap my head around it. The fact that there is anybody that collects a paycheck for the American government that believes that what happened on October 7th was justified.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is the left has been captured completely by the radical left base of people who are like, this is decolonization. All this, like, the
intersectionality.
Intersectionality.
Yep.
Because they're like, oh, this is the same thing. BLM and all these movements are all the same thing. Like, it's the same reason why you see these rallies and it's like a banner of like gay people for
Gays for Gaza.
Gays for Gaza.
Yeah.
Can I stop you on that, because I think it's worth actually just explaining. So intersectionality, you hear that and it's like, what the fuck does that mean? Everyone says that because it doesn't actually mean anything, but what it means to the left is that there are oppressors and there is the oppressed.
Correct.
It's Marxism.
That's it.
It's Marxism. And that's the foundation principle for BLM and many parts of the today's progressive movement. And so when they look at a situation like the Palestinians in Israel, they look at people who look like them as the oppressed and people who don't look like them as the oppressor. That's classic racism, folks. That's what that is. It's racism. But they've categorized people into oppressors and oppressed. Like, never mind the fact that there aren't any Israelis that live in Gaza. Never mind that there are plenty of Islamic citizens of Israel. What they are trying to say is that there are two sides to this story. One side is bad because of their existence.
Yeah.
And it doesn't go a moment beyond that. Like you saw AOC, which I found completely hilarious earlier in the week. There is no solution except for a diplomatic solution. Is that right? Well, you should contact the relatives of Yasser Arafat about that. Yeah. You should maybe go talk to, and as much as I hate to admit this, you should go talk to Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton about that.
So again, I don't agree with all the policies of the Clinton White House, but Madeleine Albright had this great quote saying that the Palestinians never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity.
Yeah.
Like, they always would walk away from making any kind of a peace deal.
Two-state solution, which is what the left wants mainstream America to believe the Palestinians want, is what has been offered for decades, time and time again. So much so that Israel has built infrastructure. They have provided humanitarian relief. They've done all of these things for the Palestinian people and in Gaza specifically. And it's not only been rejected, it's been robbed. And at the very end of every single one of these solutions, it's been rejected.
And they've used all of that aid to make Gaza a staging ground for terrorism.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest. Like the left talks about it being an open-air prison. What fucking open-air prison has paragliders? You know?
Paragliders.
It doesn't make any sense. They've got weapons caches in hospitals. Our own intelligence officials say they have independent confirmation of that. You remember earlier in the week, all the leftist accounts were saying the IDF is firing into this hospital. They're killing people. And then what do we find out? Oh boy, the thing we always knew. Hamas is using it as a staging ground for attacks.
And you can see it. They have now a video
and
of
they always know it. They always
sitting
know
in the lobby of the hospital, walking out and firing missiles.
We are arguing with people in bad faith. Like, every one of these leftists who claims to be a nice person knows the fucking truth.
Yep.
Knows that there is terrorism there. They don't care.
They don't care.
They hate Jews. They hate Israel.
Mm-hmm. That's right. But now the Biden administration is dealing with it as a constituency, which is very different than what President Biden said a week after October 7. They're dealing with it because they're concerned about places like Michigan, where they have a couple 100,000 Islamic residents that they count on to vote Democrat to put them over the top to get to 51% in Michigan, that they're concerned about. So they have to, that's why they do things like commission studying Islamophobia amidst unprecedented anti-Semitism around this country. Like, you wonder how that actually makes sense to somebody. Well, if you think about it from that prism, it does. Mm-hmm. Except for the prism is entirely broken. Hamas is not a fucking constituency in the United States of America.
That's exactly right. That's
it's
exactly
not.
Right.
It's not.
It's wrong to think of them as such.
And every single time that the left has tried to latch hold of an undesirable constituency within the United States of America and attach it to the Republican Party, let's say white nationalism, for example, immediately you hear everybody from President Trump on down.
Condemn. You must condemn.
But not only you must condemn, they don't even have to say it. They do. Mm-hmm. They do condemn. They do condemn white nationalism. They do condemn white supremacy. They do condemn all of the things that we're being accused. That's not a constituency within the right that people are interested in courting. Yet these guys, to this moment, and I think is as evidenced by not showing up on that stage this week in front of 300,000 people, is evidence that it is a constituency.
When Rashida Tlaib tweets out from the river to the sea, it's pretty damn clear where she stands on the issue.
Yep.
And the message that she has. And the fact that she doesn't get reprimanded by the president.
Yep.
Shows where the sway is.
Right, and the one thing, I'll just say this, I know we got to move on. I don't know if you guys saw this Fox News investigative piece about this private Facebook group that Rashida Tlaib is a part of, where they're just like praising Hamas on October 7th and everything like that. Imagine the scenario where a Republican president wouldn't be jumping all over themselves to condemn that, saying, get her out of here. We need to find somebody else. Surely there's someone else in Michigan who can represent that district.
Well, I mean, look, the House of Representatives condemned Gosar for appearing in the same venue as white nationalists. This is somebody who actually advocates on behalf of Hamas.
Right.
Double standards. I agree with you, Smug. I'm done arguing double standards. I just want you to know the double standard is not that. I have no faith anybody's going to report this out. I just want you as a listener to know Hamas is a constituency of today's Democratic Party. Think about that. Rattle that around in your mind, because that is a fact.
It's terrifying, and it's the truth.
All right, so moving on, I think we've got to play a game. Let's lighten this up a little bit.
Let's do it.
Yeah, well, it's Thursday, and that can mean only one thing: King of the Hill. Who is playing today?
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. It's time for King of the Hill. In the blue corner, fighting out of his own Twitter account, Matthew Mail Pattern down. And now, in the red corner, fighting from the Lincoln Project, and current champion of the world, read it at the DNC Galen.
I like that. That was a good one.
That's who's participating, Michael.
Wow. Okay, so Smug is our defending champion with Reed Galen. You have our challenger, right? And Holmes, you're...
No. Holmes has the challenger.
Holmes has the challenger.
I've got the challenger. It's Matthew Mail Pattern, and I'm bringing him back after a long hiatus.
So then Ashbrook is judge, and I'm bailiff. Finally, we can restore some order to this court.
Okay. All right. Well, you've got the first whack, as they say.
So one thing I would like our audience to know is that Reed Galen is an absolute scumbag and a horrible human being. Can we start with exhibit number 9? So this is Reed Galen. There's a tweet from Aaron Rupar that says, image of Donald Trump Jr. and Letitia James in court this morning. And Reed Galen says, how much Narcan does it take to get Jr. to sit still?
Oof.
Thinking that's a good thing to say.
Jeez.
When, how many Americans each day die overdosing on fentanyl?
Mm-hmm. Not a joke.
And then again, this is an example of Democrats having to project because they don't want to talk about Hunter Biden.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to project some image of, the president's son is on drugs. It's pretty clear if you want to talk about our president's son who's on drugs, it's Hunter Biden.
I always do find that funny.
Isn't it crazy? They're like,
they're like, we cannot
must be on drugs.
We must not attack the son, the child of the president of the United States, and he's like 55 years old.
Yeah.
You know, like I remember I think it was after one of the debates when they attacked Ron DeSantis for attacking Hunter Biden, and they were like, wow, he's a hypocrite. Because he said children are off the table, families off the table, but he attacks Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden is older than Ron DeSantis.
It's just wild.
Thank you, bailiff, counselor.
Okay, Nikki, I think we got to bring up Exhibit 10. This is Matthew Dowd. On climate change, D's are where the center is. On raising taxes on the wealthy, D's are where the center is. On international relations, D's are at the center. Protecting Social Security and Medicare, D's are at the center. On respect for diversity of race, sexuality, faith, D's are where the center is. I would submit today's Democratic Party, particularly in this context, are the furthest thing from where the center is on each and every one of these things. Not to mention the fact that race, sexuality, and faith is particularly amazing to me.
What's interesting to me is that this is said against the backdrop of the possibility of maybe Joe Manchin getting in the race or RFK Jr. getting in the race or some Democrats saying maybe we should have something a little bit more in the middle. And he is a former Republican acting like a partisan press secretary for the Democrats. And the first take, Smug, was very, very just unsettling. But it does not rise to what Matthew Dowd has tweeted there. And so for that reason, Josh, you win round one.
And I have to applaud your restraint. All that talk of D's in the center, you didn't make a sexual joke.
I did not, and I wanted your applause.
I mean, you're incredible restraint.
I wanted that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. D's in the center, just like my chicken commentary from Tuesday.
Yes.
Okay, counselor.
I will start with what I deem to be a knockout blow.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be Exhibit 13.
Extensive research. Oh, boy.
Watching the GOP debate last night, I was struck by the fact that a party and politicians who spout quote-unquote Christianity, quote-unquote pro-life, and allegiance to Jesus, how amped they are to kill people, whether it is in the Middle East, on the border, or in our urban areas. Lordy Moses. Okay. Obviously, we know what he's talking about here in terms of the Israel-Palestinian issue. The interesting wrinkle to this is a man who worked wholeheartedly, and you can review the tape, incredibly vocal about George W. Bush and his war in Iraq.
And he's the author of Axis of Evil, right? It was Dowd who wrote. Like that was he's the author of that, like literally, right?
Yeah, he wrote it. This is a man who's now all of a sudden concerned about the Republicans' disinterest, or as he says, to kill people, whether it's in the Middle East. So right now, it's a murderous revenge. When he was running the show in a Republican administration, it was about liberation, fellas. Yeah. It was about liberation.
Roses at our feet. The good news from Iraq.
Good. Iraq facts. That was the Steve Schmidt special. Iraq facts.
Wow. Okay. Smug, what's your play?
Could I get Exhibit 7, please? So the background of this is we just had a week where polls are showing essentially that every Republican in America could beat Joe Biden. And Reed's take is, reminder, Joe Biden is the only person who has beaten real Donald Trump and the only person who can beat him. And then he has this Substack link. Sign up. Incredible timing on an incredible take.
My God.
Given the background of Dowd, his take is just stunning on a number of levels. And I was prepared to give him the win on 2 rounds until I saw that.
Oh!
A pitch for a Substack that's rooted in Joe Biden, who fell down the stairs from his airplane again like 2 days ago, is the only person who can beat Donald Trump. It's Smug. You win the second round.
Oh,
excellent.
A fair court.
I'm ready to end it with this one.
Okay, go ahead.
Can I get Exhibit 8, please? So Reed Galen is, quote, retweeting this guy. This dude said, "Holy shit, Univision, the nation's largest Spanish language network, has decided to cancel ad buys by the Biden campaign."
Hold on, I don't think you actually can
Thank you, Bailiff. You can describe.
You can describe it.
okay.
You can describe
I
it.
can't read the entire.
So some guy was like freaking out. He was like, "Oh my God, Univision canceled Joe Biden ad buys." Like after Trump met with executives, like is Univision now in the pocket of Donald Trump?
Okay.
I mean, so he got what Community noted that this was just Univision saying you couldn't run Joe Biden ads during their interview with Donald Trump. And so Reed Galen's take is, don't be shocked, be prepared. If they've cut off that avenue, how and where can we drive a message? Essentially, give money to the Lincoln Project. We'll tell you we're running ads, but we're actually buying a summer house.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, but man, that house Schmidt got in Utah is quite the crib.
It's quite a crib.
Okay.
Quite a crib.
Holmes, how about your play?
Exhibit 11, please, Nikki. Think of the GOP as a party boat. For at least 15 years, it has been heading to port in an autocratic Christian nationalist land.
Jeez.
Been steered there by Newt, Fox News, Sarah Palin, that's a blast from the past, etc. Trump merely got on board and speeded up the boat. If Trump is removed, it's still headed there. Now, if you can get over just like the thesis of the statement, consider the fact that for at least 15 years is exactly the time period that Matthew Dowd has himself removed himself from active participation in Republican politics. You really got something there.
I have to say that as funny as a fundraising appeal from Reed Galen is, masquerading as a tweet, it's also the sort of thing you expect from the Lincoln Project. And it just rises to a completely different level when you are a guy who was the author of Republican messaging, one of the most powerful Republican operatives in the universe for well more than a decade, and then you blame everybody else for what happened after that. And so for that reason, Josh and Matthew Mail Pattern Dowd win the game.
Oh, I feel so good about it. The rise of Matthew Mail Pattern Dowd is very important to me. As you know, he became instrumental in my initial success in this game, and he's been on a long hiatus.
And you're good at you're good at playing him. You're good at it. I got to say, like, crazy, but like some decent writing chops in there.
Oh no, he's got good writing.
He painted a picture, an interesting picture.
Well, he's a man of many talents. I welcome everyone to Google Matthew Dowd, Arnold Schwarzenegger wife. See what shows up.
See what shows up. Just see
you
what
never know.
shows up.
You never know.
You never know what you're going to find on that internet. You never know. All right, right before we get to their interview, Nikki, put up the image of the Cobra. All right, so this thing, hold on. I don't even know why we're highlighting the thing behind it. But that thing, can we get to, is there a video of this thing? Or is that just it? Is that all? Yeah, here we go. Look at this. Look, see, do you see the Cobra?
Yeah.
Where is this?
It's on a golf course. It's in a golf
Are
course
you serious?
in Africa, and this king cobra is doing a hurdle over a tee box marker on a golf course. Pretty agile.
What do you do if you're like setting up? Because that looks like kind of a formal tee box, right? Those tee markers. I mean, that looks like a real course.
Yeah.
Real course. What do you do? What's your move if that thing's coming at you?
I'll tell you exactly what you do. You get in your golf cart and you move it to a safe distance. And did you saw the mongoose?
Yeah, there's a mongoose
right over its
Is
shoulder.
that what that was?
Yeah.
That's what we were
Yeah.
highlighting. Nikki, pop that thing back.
Yeah,
Look at that.
Ricky Tikki Tavi, right there.
Okay, so this is a show that's about to go down.
Right,
Yeah.
you put your golf cart in reverse, beep 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 beep. You back up to a safe distance, and you watch the mongoose take down that cobra.
Wait, is that what they do? Those things take down those snakes?
Yeah, I mean, that snake, although terrifying to us, is actually running for its life.
No way.
Like mongooses, they can take bites from snakes. They're like singular purpose in life is to fight snakes.
Really?
Yeah,
It's
amazing.
it's about to own that thing.
Really?
But my question is, why would you back up if you got golf clubs? You got golf clubs. What are you?
Yeah, I mean,
Because they're fast as lightning.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah, but you're on a tee box,
And it's probably
and you've got a
11
driver.
feet long.
I'd even try to get the mongoose, man.
I'm throwing
trying to
everything I got at that thing.
I want skins and I want proof. Like,
Can you-
I'd take the Cobra and I'd take the Ricky Tikki Tabi.
Wait,
with the golf
you're
clubs.
going to charge the
I'm
Cobra?
attacking everybody. I'm getting when they start fighting each other. That's when I go in.
You come in, you like
Yeah.
a vulture. You like swoop in at the last
While-
second.
while they're engaged.
And you take the carcass.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
You do double driver smash.
Bingo, that's it.
Double
one for
driver
each of them,
smash.
and I'm coming home with trophies. Even if you lose, if your buddy wins the day, it doesn't matter. I got 2 bodies.
King Cobra snakeskin boots sound pretty
Seriously,
nice.
that would be so hard. This thing? Yeah, I got it golfing.
Yeah.
Low score.
tried rolling up on me.
Yeah.
As long as you're wearing a Cobra around your neck at the end. I love that. Fellas, I think we did it. This has been a hell of a week. I can't believe that we've actually gotten through this. But I think we did it in style.
Yeah.
Did.
I think so. I mean, absolute banger of an episode, if I may say so myself. Gentlemen, outstanding show. And thank you so much to the Minions. Again, if you are only listening, hit up YouTube, follow Ruthless Podcast there. You'll love seeing the video. So until next time, Minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you on Tuesday. Stay ruthless.